Speaker Pelosi says her husband has a long recovery ahead. In the meantime, questions continue about the extent of evidence already released in the cases against defendant David DePape.
Our correspondent Dan Kerman live for us outside the Pelosi home in Pacific Heights with more. Dan, this sounds promising for Paul Pelosi.
That's right. Not even 7 days, but 6 days. He is already back at home and recovering. Nancy Pelosi issuing a statement today thanking everybody for their prayers and their hopes in regards to his recovery, and also really making a point to thank first responders. 6 days after being struck in the head with a hammer and undergoing surgery for a skull fracture at San Francisco General Hospital, the husband of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has returned to their Pacific Heights home. In a statement, Speaker Pelosi said her husband Paul remains under doctor's care as he continues to progress on a long recovery process and convalescence. He is now home surrounded by his family, who request privacy. In the meantime, the defendant in the attack, David DePape, remains behind bars facing both state and federal charges. Friday, a date is to be set for his preliminary hearing in the state case. In the district attorney's most recent filing to detain him without bail, prosecutors reveal much of their evidence. Defendant admitted he intended to enter the home to take Speaker Nancy Pelosi hostage, and if Speaker Pelosi lied to him, he intended to break her kneecaps. Quoting DePape, "She's number 2 in line for the presidency, right?" When Mr. Pelosi agreed, defendant responded that they are all corrupt and we've got to take them all out. Defendant told officers and medics at the scene, quote, "I'm sick of the insane level of lies coming out of Washington, D.C. I came here to have a little chat with his wife." Defendant added, "I didn't really want to hurt him, but you know this was a suicide mission." Later, when asked if he had any other plans, defendant named several targets, including a local professor, several prominent state and federal politicians, and relatives of those state and federal politicians.
The amount of detail that has been disseminated to the public about this case in such short order is calling into question Mr. DePape's ability to get a fair trial.
Legal analyst Steve Clark is a Bay Area criminal defense attorney. He understands much of what's being released is to set the record straight, but he says it does raise several questions.
The defense may seek to keep his interrogation out of evidence, and how do they unring this bell when the DA's office is putting in very detailed responses he may have made even before that has been deemed to be admissible.
Clark says the discussion about a change of venue is a ways off, but he says the defense will likely take some steps soon.
I think the defense will talk to a judge about getting a gag order about this case because Mr. DePape is presumed to be innocent and he is entitled to a fair trial.
Back live outside the Pelosi home, we can tell you at this point that tomorrow is expected to be just a procedural event in court, at which point the attorneys will talk about what date to set for the preliminary hearing. At this point, it is unclear whether DePape will make an appearance in that courtroom. Live in San Francisco, Dan Kerman, KRON 4 News.